So, I am Brillionist. I am sixth. I want to talk about accretion disks. This is another joke, okay? Straight up, it is. Never going to happen. And you have to take it on faith. It's a religion, straight up, to believe that accretion disks happen. Because what are they? They are random matter spinning into a more ordered state, namely a spinning disk of random matter, which then over time clumps together, produces planets, stars, so on and so forth. So yeah, flies in the face of the three laws of thermodynamics, flies in the face of entropy, which you can never beat. And it also does some really interesting stuff along the way. So, first things about an accretion disk, whether it's a galactic one, like a spiral galaxy, or whether it's one that's going to produce a solar system, doesn't make any difference. It's spinning. I have to ask, where? How? Please explain how it is that the miraculous finger of God, or whatever the hell you want to call it, chose a chunk of matter, some another spun his finger around, or whatever you want to call it, because, you know, let's face it, in evolutionary theory, there is no God, right? It's just random shit that happens. How did, you know, something create that swirl, that spinning? Because, you know, matter was just expanding outwards randomly, you know, supposedly from the Big Bang. That didn't happen, that you can't prove that happened because it didn't happen. Matter was just extending outward in every direction, you know, because that's what explosions do, right? So how did the vast majority of matter clump together into these spinning vortices, you know, spiral galaxies, and, you know, on a smaller scale, accretion disks that form solar systems? How did that happen? Oh, that's right. You can't explain it because, you know what? You know that it didn't happen, because at the end of the day, it didn't happen. All right, so let's pretend like it happened, because, you know, I'm willing to see your perspective, but at the same time, I'm going to always call foul when I recognize that, you know, it requires some suspension of belief of things that I know are absolutely dead factual in order to even have these things happen. So, you know, the finger of God reached down and took a bunch of random matter that was just flinging outwards in every direction and spun his finger and made them spin into an accretion disk. And in the end, you know, humans there, the planet Earth happened, so on and so forth. So this solar system specifically. And now I want to talk about the supposed accretion disk that this solar system is in. Okay. First of all, at the center you have a star, and then you have lots of empty space, and then you have a small planet, Mercury, and then a little bit further out you have lots of empty space, and then you have another planet, Venus, and then a little ways out you have lots of empty space, and then you have another planet, Earth, and then you have a bunch of empty space again, and then you have another planet, Mars, and then you have a bunch of rocks, rubble, you know, the asteroid belt. And then a little ways further out, you have another planet, Jupiter. And then you have, you know, a bunch of rocks on either side of Jupiter, you know, more debris, you know, bits of stuff. But you keep doing this. And, you know, you eventually see all the planets, in which you finally get to, like, say, Pluto, which I still say is a planet. I don't care what you guys think. Yeah, you wanted to demote it, but whatever. I understand why you did, and I think you were just obfuscating. That's it. Okay. So, there are some characteristics I want to point out. The accretion disk is, you know, like a flat disk, right? You know, it's got a clump in the middle. It's a little bit taller than out at the edges, but nevertheless, it's a really flat structure overall. And you have Pluto that's not even in the disk, which is why it is that you say it's, you know, a planetoid that got trapped, and therefore it's not a planet. But it's completely outside the disk. You know, it has a completely off the disk orbit. So right there, you've got a problem, and you've obfuscated this fact by saying, "Oh, it was trapped." Blah 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 blah. Okay, whatever. Sure, maybe you can't prove it because you don't know. You can't prove anything that you say. You just think that's what it is. All right. Then you have things like, say, Neptune, which are basically 90 degrees to the accretion disk. You have moons and planets that spin backwards from the accretion disk. Then you have other ones like, say, Earth and Venus, Mars, that spin all in the same direction. But then you have other ones that don't, that spin the other direction. How? Oh, wait, that's right. The big rock theory that you, again, can't prove. The big rock smacked into them and made it spin backwards. Well, I'm going to say this about planets as a general statement. They're rocks and dirt and, junk like that. They're not really like packed together. They don't have like steel reinforcing inside them. They're not even as good as like concrete as far as structural integrity is concerned. So you smack them with a big enough rock to cause it to spin backwards, and I'm sorry, it's going to just sling apart, because that's a big-ass rock moving with lots and lots of energy. Smack it against something enough to make it spin backwards. I would say that's probably how the asteroid belt got made, maybe, but certainly not how it is you make a planet spin backwards, and certainly not how it is that you get it to spin at 90 degrees to the axis of the accretion disk, because, again, that would create an asteroid field, because planets don't have the structural integrity of even concrete. They're rocks and dirt and stuff loosely packed together. They're not steel reinforced. They're not even as good as mortar. They're terrible about holding themselves together. What holds them together is the weak-ass force of gravity, for goodness sake. So you have a large, highly massive, fast-moving, high-energy object smacking into one. They're just going to fall apart. They're going to explode into bits and pieces. They're not going to hold together. So a planet like Neptune, that's more or less at a 90 degree to the accretion disk, or like, moons and planets and things spinning backwards, no, not going to happen. Not going to happen. You'll get the asteroid field instead. You won't get a planet spinning backwards at 90 degrees from the accretion disk. Not going to happen. Okay, so let's talk about Mars for a second. Mars is kind of cute, kind of cool. I want to go there, and I know it's got life on it right now. So Mars, on one side, is severely pocked up, and on the other side, it's not. Okay. So Mars, it spins, yeah? This is well known. You can look in the sky, put a telescope on it, and you can see the thing rotate. This is a well-known common fact. No one is in question of Mars having a day and a night, because it spins similarly to Earth, just it takes a different amount of time to do it, to make one complete rotation. All right. So, how is it that one side of Mars can be highly pocked up and the other side not? Well, that's because a very short-lived event happened. Something that took, basically half of a Mars day or less to occur. Otherwise, the entire planet would be pocked up like that one side is. No, there was something that happened on Mars that happened rapidly, within hours of time. And I think the asteroid belt is the remains of that, whatever that was. And one side of Mars got smacked pretty damn hard, and the other side didn't. And this probably created a lot of environmental chaos on that planet, and it's probably why Mars is a desert planet, cold, thin atmosphere, things like that now. But still able to support some life, like right now. This is not something that takes a lot of thinking to figure out. That what happened to Mars happened in a very, very short amount of time. Because it did. Okay, so let's talk about the asteroid belt. And let's talk about that belt, the clumping of matter around Jupiter. If you look at any other place in our solar system, let's look at the Earth orbit, for example. Do you find clumpings of matter on either side of the planet? Do you? Go ahead. No, you don't. How about Venus? No. Mercury? No. Saturn? No. Neptune? Uranus? No, 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 you don't. Why? Because it wasn't there to begin with. However, something existed between Mars and Jupiter, okay, right where that asteroid belt is, and some of the stuff got slung on Mars, some of it got slung out to Jupiter and got trapped in its orbit, and a whole bunch of it stayed smack between the two, i.e. a planet that used to be there. I would have to say that if you want to say a big rock did it, this is your only possible example of this happening. And that is a big rock blew up the planet, if that's in fact how that happened. And you don't know, and I don't know. But what we have is a lot of random rubble that has never formed into a planet. Again, why? Because at the end, the three laws of thermodynamics always win. Entropy always wins. You don't get higher ordered states from lower ordered states. That takes will and purpose. That takes design and intelligence for that to happen. It's the only way that happens. Otherwise, you get things like the asteroid belt. It will never clump together into a planet. It's always going to be chaos, period. Never mind the fact that an accretion disk is a much more ordered state than random matter exploding outwards. Never mind it's got that spinning going on. Never mind you've got these planetary spacings. Never mind the fact you've got, planets that, sit 90 degrees on their axis from the accretion disk, or that you have things that spin backwards. All those kind of things are saying, you know what? The accretion disk theory is bunk. It's garbage. It doesn't fit the facts. It is something that needs to be thrown out because it is not factual and is observationally proven to be bullshit. I will just call it what it is. It is fantasy. There is no aspect of the accretion disk theory that you can actually observe in our galaxy or in our solar system and say, oh yeah. You have to ignore facts in order to say the accretion disk theory, which I loathe at even calling it that. The accretion disk myth, because that's what it is. You have to ignore facts, observational realities. You have to ignore them in order to say that the accretion disk happened. Because it doesn't fly. It falls flat on its face based on all the evidence, all the observational evidence that you have in our solar system alone. Never mind other solar systems. It flat out doesn't work. So, that's accretion disks. Yippee!